is up, guys? Tony Picks here with another upload. For this video, we're going to be doing the full fight card predictions for UFC Fight Night Singapore, Maia versus Askren. So let's get right into it. I'm going to try to cruise by these prelims fairly quickly and then put a little bit more detail into the main card breakdowns. So kicking off the fight card, we got Raphael Pessoa squaring off against Jeff Hughes. Jeff Hughes coming off a no contest with Todd Duffy. Pessoa coming off of a loss to Cyril Gane. Easy breakdown for me here. Jeff Hughes just fought Todd Duffy, and if any of you watched that fight, Jeff Hughes got rocked early, so took some of Todd Duffy's biggest shots early and started putting on the pressure to Todd Duffy, was kind of giving it back to him. So that tells a lot to me. It tells me that Jeff Hughes is able to take some big shots. I think Todd Duffy strikes a lot harder than Raphael Pessoa. So if Jeff Hughes is able to take Todd Duffy's best strikes and then return fire later in the first, I think he's going to be able to do the same for Pessoa. Not really a clear path to victory for Pessoa here. Jeff Hughes is kind of better on the feet, for me, at least in terms of just the basics. Pessoa throws a bit wild. He's going to look to land looping shots. Does have some power, but nothing that's threatening to Hughes, at least I think. Hughes has a better wrestling, better ground game, although it's not really a significant ground game. He does have the better ground game. Has fought better opponents. Fairly easy breakdown for me. I see Jeff Hughes coming in early, possibly eating some of Pessoa's shots, and then just returning fire kind of in the later times of the first round. So I see it after the kind of second, third minute of the first, after Pessoa's kind of thrown his big looping shots, possibly landed a few, but I just see Jeff Hughes kind of finishing it either late in the first or early in the second. So with that being said, I'm going to lock in the KO/TKO victory to Jeff Hughes. I think it's going to be a ground and pound victory. I think he's going to land a big shot, take Pessoa down. Pessoa does give up the takedowns fairly easily, and once Pessoa's on his back, he's lost. So I can't see Jeff Hughes kind of just putting him on his back, landing the big shots, and the ref stopping it. Whether it's late in the first or early in the second, I'm not too sure, but I do see Jeff Hughes finishing that. So with that being said, guys, Jeff Hughes via TKO. Moving on to the next matchup, we got Lookboonmee, what a name, versus Alexandre Albu. Interesting matchup. A lot of the prediction videos I've been watching are leaning towards Loma. I don't think people are taking into consideration Loma's coming up from atomweight, so she's normally fighting at 105, like normally really walking around probably at around 110, 115. If that 120 max. Alexandre Albu, you can kind of just see by the pictures here, like just a physical specimen. One of the strongest fighters in the division in terms of physical strengths, coming out of Moldova. A lot of those Moldovan fighters, like Ion Kutiloba, are really just strong people, physically imposing. For those of you that haven't watched any of Loma's previous bouts, she does train out of Tiger Muay Thai, has a wicked stand-up game. I think her stand-up is far more superior than Alexandre's. But I think what people need to take in consideration is three things. Firstly, this is Loma's UFC debut. She hasn't fought in a cage before, so that's going to be a big difference in terms of when her opponent has her against the cage defending the takedowns properly. Her level of competition. She hasn't fought UFC caliber fighters, although she has fought in high-level strikers. Obviously, coming from a Muay Thai background, she's fought in high-level strikers, but not really high-level wrestlers and fighters that are able to mix it up. And third thing that I mentioned earlier, she's coming up from atomweight. So I think Alexandre Albu, being one of the stronger fighters in the division, is going to have a significant strength advantage. So I see this fight playing out one of two ways. The first way, and I'm kind of going to give it like a 40% chance, is Loma Lookboonmee kind of just picking apart Alexandre Albu on the feet, landing her kicks, her punches, and able to avoid the takedowns, because she does have a decent, has shown decent wrestling. And not really the greatest of takedown defense, but she has shown decent wrestling. So that's the first way I can see this fight playing out. The second way I see this fight playing out is Alexandre Albu coming into boxing range, not really respecting Loma's kicks, landing some big shots, and just physically imposing her will, as in just forcing the grapple on her, forcing the wrestling game, and repeatedly taking her down and just landing the ground and pound. Also, with Loma throwing a lot of kicks, I think that kind of leads her susceptible to being taken down. She does throw some lazy kicks, often, if you've watched her previous fights. So interesting matchup here. Could go either way. Could go Loma just pick apart Alexandre Albu standing up, but I'm going to lean more towards Alexandre Albu. She has a UFC experience, strong fighter, can get the job done, whereas Loma really needs to fight smart, keep her at range, and use her striking, and that's hard to do on a UFC debut. So with that being said, I'm going to lock in my decision, a split decision to Alexandre Albu. Moving on to the next bout, Maurice Greene against Sergey Pavlovich. Interesting matchup here. I really like Maurice Greene just from his personality from The Ultimate Fighter, but I think Sergey Pavlovich is just too. This isn't a good matchup for Maurice Greene. Pavlovich has really good boxing, although people kind of look past him a bit because his UFC debut was against Alistair Overeem and he got knocked out, which, you know what I mean? Like, if you're debuting in the UFC and you fight Alistair Overeem's top 3 UFC pure strikers that there is, in like the heavyweight division, of course. Wicked knees, and it's hard to fight that guy on your UFC debut. It really is. So a lot of people kind of instantly they hear of Sergey Pavlovich, they think of that loss to Alistair Overeem, but this guy's a stud. Maurice Greene coming off of a split decision win to Todd Hughes, who's fighting earlier on the fight card. What this comes down to here is I think Sergey Pavlovich's aggressiveness. He's going to be coming forward looking to land the big shots on Maurice Greene, and Maurice Greene is kind of chinny. He does not take shots very well. Something to look out, though, for is Maurice Greene's triangle off of his back. He does have decent submissions off of his back. And obviously, I see Pavlovich coming in, trying to land the big shots, looking for the takedown and beating up Maurice Greene. Interesting matchup here because I think that a lot of people are looking past Maurice Greene here, and I do think that he does have a real chance here if he's able to withstand that initial rush of Pavlovich in the first round, like we've seen against his last fight. I forget who he fought, but Pavlovich, kind of rushed forward with big wheeling shots, eventually knocked the guy out. So I think if Maurice Greene's able to avoid that in the first round, it'll make things interesting. But I just think Pavlovich's pressure and his shots are too much for Maurice Greene. So with that being said, I'm going to give a first or second round KO to Sergey Pavlovich. I think his forward pressure is too much, and Maurice Greene is there to be hit. Moving on to the next bout, another interesting matchup between Enrique Barzola and Movsar Evloev. Interesting matchup here between Enrique Barzola, who is a wicked wrestler, decent striker, and Movsar Evloev, coming from M1, which is a wicked organization in Russia, undefeated, good wrestling. Basically, a quick breakdown for this one. What it comes down to me in terms of essentials and when you actually break down the footage of these two fighters, Enrique Barzola, when he takes you down, he doesn't really keep you there for long periods of time. So he takes you down and you're kind of down for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and you're up. And he'll try to take you down again. He'll repeat that. He doesn't really keep you down and punish you. Whereas Movsar, if you watch him, when he takes you down, you're down for like a minute or two and he's beating you up and he's looking to pass and stuff. And he's very like calm in a weird way. Whereas Enrique is constantly moving. He's constantly trying to do things and he's really overexerting himself trying to work for the takedowns. And then when he gets the takedowns, there's not like a significant threat there. I think stand-up kind of evens itself out here. Movsar with the better boxing of the two. Enrique, I think, with the better movement, a lot maybe quicker. We'll see a slight speed advantage. So yeah, what it comes down to here, I think Movsar is going to be able to nullify Enrique's wrestling. He's going to really be making him work for the wrestling. I don't think Enrique is going to have that much success with the wrestling, and then Movsar is going to start picking him apart. With the boxing, landing the bigger shots, possibly landing a takedown of his own late, but really just landing the cleaner shots and nullifying the wrestling of Barzola. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to lock in the, unanimous decision vote for Movsar Evloev. In the next bout, the headliner of the prelims, we got Raphael Fiziev against Alex the Spartan White. Pretty interesting bout here. I'm going to classify Alex White as a stand-up fighter, a boxer, if you will. He does throw big shots. He does have decent stand-up, decent shots. Raphael Fiziev coming off of a kind of disappointing UFC debut to Magomed Mustafayev, ate a wicked spinning back kick to the face. Raphael Fiziev, if you guys haven't watched any of his previous kickboxing fights, I seriously recommend you guys go watch that. This guy's a beast in the stand-up department. which makes things very interesting for me because Alex White is always willing to throw down and scrap, but against someone like Raphael Fiziev, where he has the edge in the wrestling, I wonder if he's going to utilize that game plan, if he's going to look to wrestle Fiziev. So it's kind of one of those predictions and fights where I don't really have a confidence enough to where I would like bet on these. But yeah, in terms of this fight, this depends on Alex White's um, his fight IQ because he has a clear path to victory, kind of spamming the takedowns, wearing on Raphael Fiziev, forcing him to wrestle, and just really racking up the points, making it a dirty fight. But this guy loves to brawl. He loves to brawl. We often seen it kind of with fighters that like Tim Mean. The guy's really technical but loves getting in brawls, and we've seen how bad that hurt him against someone like Nico Price. And it's really hard to bet or give confidence in fighters that haven't shown fighting IQ in the past. So with that being said, I'm going to give the KO victory here to Raphael Fiziev. I think Alex White's going to look for the brawl, and he's going to get clipped and put away. But he does have a clear path to victory with the takedown, so it's not necessarily a confident pick. It's mostly me relying on Alex White not having fighting IQ. Oh, there's another fight on the prelims. Honda Markos against Ashley Yoder. Kind of an easy prediction for me. Ronda Markos is stronger everywhere. Ashley Yoder has a decent ground game. In my eyes, she won that fight against Mackenzie Dern, had the better stand-up punches, and avoided the takedowns. Really, she's content with getting top position, but I don't think she's going to be able to implement her grappling on someone like Ronda Markos. Something that I find interesting about Ronda Markos is she's never really been able to go on a run, and she's coming off of a loss, and she normally wins coming off of her losses. That's why her record's kind of even. She wins, lose. She kind of splits them, one apiece. Coming off of a loss, I think she's going to be hungry for a win. A nice matchup for her against Ashley Yoder. I don't know. The only thing I'm torn here is if Ronda Markos gets the finish or if she just gets a unanimous decision because I can see Ashley Yoder being perfectly content with working off of her back, just kind of spamming submission attempts from the back, and Ronda Markos just landing at will. But these guys they're both pretty decent at arm bars. So it's kind of a tricky one. But either way, I'm going to lock in my unanimous decision with Ronda Markos. I just think she's kind of better everywhere the fight goes. Moving on to the next bout, we got Muslim Salikhov against Laureano Staropoli. So I will make one prediction right off the bat. I'm going to predict a total of 0 takedowns this fight. Both of these guys are pretty solid stand-up fighters. In terms of power and sheer force, Muslim Salikhov has the edge. In terms of movement and quickness, Laureano Staropoli has the edge here. Interesting matchup. Staropoli coming off of the win of Thiago Alves. Salikhov coming off of that wicked knockout of Nordine Taleb. I'm just trying to get through this fairly quick so I can put a lot more detail into the final fights. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking, guys, in my head here. If you guys watched the Salikhov fight against Taleb, Salikhov was able to kind of just walk Taleb down and anticipate his movement. He ended up landing, I believe it was a right or left, but it was in the direction that Nordine was moving, and he was looking for that shot the whole first round. And I really thought that Nordine Taleb was doing a decent job at kind of landing his shots, landing his kicks, and getting out of the way. But he kind of stopped moving his head. His head was just there to be hit. He was moving around. At first, he was showing good head movement, but then at the end of the first, he kind of got lazy. I don't know if it was Muslim Salikhov wearing on him that kind of forced that head movement to stop, but eventually he got caught. Laureano Staraopoli it's interesting, man, because people are writing off Staraopoli here, and I think that his movement is something to take into consideration. He's young, he's hungry, he's got cardio for days. It's just Muslim Salikhov, this fight kind of works so well for him. Basically, guys, I think it's a stand-up fight. Essentially, what it comes down to here is if Laureano's able to stay on his back foot this whole fight, land the leg kicks, land the knees, land the shots, get in and out, and really just not stay planted, he'll be able to run away with the decision here. But but at any point, if he's not disciplined to the game plan and he gets touched, he will get put to sleep. Um, so I'm going to lock in my decision with Muslim Salikhov. The reason I'm saying that is because in the last fight against Thiago Alves, Laureano did get hit a few times. Not that they rocked him, but he was there to be hit. And that worries me because Salikhov does pop a lot of power. But I will say this, people are sleeping on Laureano this fight. The guy does have wicked movement, does throw good kicks, and mixes it up well. So that's going to be an interesting bout to watch. The next matchup against two massive men, 6'5", 260. Jesus Christ, you got an elephant in the ring combined with these two. Cyril Bongame Gane against Lord Kong Dantel Mies. Quick prediction, Cyril Gane via KO. Cyril Gane does come from a kickboxing Muay Thai background and has shown decent wrestling and takedowns. I think this is a good matchup for Cyril. Dantel Mies does have a decent boxing background. I just think Cyril with the kicks and the way he's able to use his range very well off of his jab, training with bigger and better fighters, and having that UFC experience is going to come into factor, although he only has had one fight. It's going to be a UFC debut for Dantel Mies. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to lock in the first round KO to Cyril Gane. Next matchup, Frank Camacho versus Beneil Dariush. All right, we're still recording. Good. This is weird to me, man. I don't know why they made this matchup. Frank the Crank is like both of these guys. I don't know how old they are. They're both relative. Like I think Frank's older than Beneil, but like Frank Camacho's coming off of a win of Nick Hein, who like Nick Hein's kind of like should retire already, and Beneil Dariush is kind of making his way back. He was a high talented prospect, suffered a few losses, but like still, man, I think Beneil Dariush is one of the top grapplers in the division, has shown really vast improvements in the stand-up. Yeah, pretty easy breakdown for me. I see Beneil Dariush essentially, well, Frank Camacho does have a puncher's chance in here because he does throw big shots, but essentially I see Beneil Dariush getting the takedown when he wants and just implementing that wicked jiu-jitsu game he has and essentially finishing with a submission. So with that being said, I'm going to give the second round submission to Beneil Dariush. Frank Camacho does have the tendency to gas also. We've seen that against Nick Hein, even though he was picking him apart on the feet. Like afterwards in his interview, he was pretty gassed. So I'm going to give the submission victory here to Beneil Dariush. Moving on to the co-main event, we got Michael Johnson versus Stevie Ray. Interesting matchup. Essentially what it comes down to is I find Stevie Ray as one of those guys that's just relatively decent at everything, doesn't really stand out at anything. He's just okay at everything. Michael Johnson, decent wrestling, really good boxing. It's just, man, when he moved up, he got clipped against Josh Emmett, and that's what happens, man. And he came back down. Like, I guess that's what happens, really, man. You can't, when he moved down to fight Josh Emmett, he was winning that fight, and then he got clipped in the third, which is such a weird thing to see, man, because he was just all over Josh Emmett. I really see Michael Johnson just having the advantage anywhere here, except for on the ground, but I don't see Stevie Ray being able to at least land a submission at will or even wanting to shoot. He's content with standing up. I see Michael Johnson just picking him apart on the feet and potentially be getting a finish late. So with that being said, I'm going to lock in the unanimous decision or possible KO to Michael Johnson. Moving on to the main event of the evening. Damn, this is a bad picture of Ben Askren right here. Fuck me. Horrible. Damian Maia versus Ben Askren. So I kind of wanted to rush through the fights to put a little bit more detail into this fight. So Damian Maia, you got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, probably one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners ever to fight in the UFC, versus Ben Askren, arguably one of the best grapplers / natural wrestlers to fight ever in the UFC. So I've watched a lot of footage on both of these guys, kind of just to determine where I want to go in terms of betting, because I do like Ben Askren's odds, although Damian Maia is the underdog. I'm going to move my cursor from his chest. It's weird. So basically what I've determined is a big X factor here for me is Damian Maia's age. He's 41. And you know what I mean? Father time catches up to you. If you watch Damian Maia's last few fights, after the the first 3 minutes really of him attempting to get the takedown or going in, or there's just a difference in Damian Maia. He just doesn't have that gas anymore. He doesn't have it to go 3 or even 5 rounds. Like it's not in Maia to do anymore. So he's gonna have to get the finish early. So the reason I was torn with this fight is because for me, Ben Askren leaves himself open so much when he wrestles. Like if you watch his wrestling matches in ONE FC, like the guy literally has almost been submitted several times. He gets his way out of submissions, but against someone like Maia, if you get put in like a bad position, it's over. So it's weird. I'm torn here because I can easily see Ben Askren trying to get a takedown of his own, and Damian Maia locking up a guillotine right quick, just latching onto that neck. Because Ben Askren has never faced anyone like Damian Maia. But in the same sense, I could also see Ben Askren just nullifying Damian Maia's offensive wrestling, putting him against the fence, beating him up, and just repeating that, not really putting himself in bad positions to get submitted, because he is a world-class wrestler. Because I think the strategy of taking down Damian Maia is great, but I think an even better strategy is putting him up against the cage, beating him up a bit the first, second round, and then just going to town on him. Because once those first rounds are out of the way, with the sweat going and just Damian Maia's not having the best gas tank, the chances of him submitting you just go down drastically. So I really think a big thing too here is Ben Askren's wrestling pedigree, him being able to avoid the offensive wrestling of Damian Maia and really utilizing a game plan that is kind of, like I said, putting him against the cage, beating him up, dirty boxing, getting those arms shot a bit, forcing him to, you know what I mean, forcing him to defend, take him down, and repeat that. And then after the first, second round, really see Ben Askren just start coming away with it. Damian Maia constantly looking for takedowns the whole fight, and it's just dangerous because Damian Maia constantly poses that threat of a submission. But with him being 41 and with him not really showing the best displays in those last few fights, Ben Askren being the wrestler that he is, and having been in bad submissions before and defended relatively well, I see this really being a decent matchup for Ben Askren. And we have seen Damian Maia against wrestlers Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, not have the best success. So I think that's something to take into consideration also. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to lock in the unanimous decision victory here to Ben Askren. The last little section of my video initially cut out, but basically, guys, if you guys like this video, give this video a thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on these fights. I'm going to be posting next week's video at some point during the week. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Until then, peace.